Hello, and welcome to our workshop, Strategic Collaboration as a Facilitative Leader. My name is Cap Wilkes, and I'm glad to be here with you today, and I'm looking forward to learning together about effective change through collaboration. I'm a certified facilitator and an agent for positive change, having been helping rural health networks, public agencies, and nonprofit organizations with their planning and problem-solving efforts to adapt and innovate for over 20 years. Collaboration allows us to address complex environments where different perspectives, skills, attributes, and strengths are at the table. Facilitative leadership enables collaboration and supports the dynamics of group dialogue and decision making. This workshop includes a supplemental workbook, providing opportunity for personal reflection and practice. Recording of this workshop presentation, along with the accompanying workbook, is posted on my website. I've designed this workshop presentation for Rural Health Network leaders. Through my work over the past 10 years, I've worked with over 200 rural health networks, and I know that you all know the value of collaboration. So I'm starting with the assumption that you are already convinced that collaboration is key to your network success. I'm also aware that there's a lot going on for you as network leaders. It's a demanding job, bringing people and organizations together that have widely different agendas and demands. Network leaders are charged with the hard work of bringing your partners and members' heads and hearts to the collaboration. Network leaders navigate differences with their partners of culture, attitudes, perceptions, styles, and perspectives. Network leaders strive to leverage their members' common desire to support and nurture the well-being of their communities. And in recognition of how hard it is to build and nurture collaboration, this workshop is designed to help network leaders be strategic in how you spend your time and energy doing collaborative work. With that in mind, the big focus question for our workshop is how can we be strategic in strengthening existing collaborative relationships and creating new relationships within our networks? The objectives of this workshop are to support development of your facilitative leadership strengths and collaboration are the factors that encourage and inhibit collaboration. One key to better understanding who your stakeholders are and why they're participating in your collaborative effort. Another key to strategic collaboration is understanding the dynamics of group decision making, and in particular, how to engage stakeholders in productive discussions. This workshop has 5 sections. We will start with some basics to make sure we're using common words and ideas. Move to learning a tool that will help us better understand the individuals we're collaborating with. Then we'll be exploring ideas about being facilitative leaders. One of the keys for getting a group to make a difference together is for everyone to be aiming for the same destination. With this in mind, we'll be spending some time considering how to develop a shared vision for your collaborative change. And lastly, we'll be considering the dynamic nature of how groups make decisions together. I've also provided you with a supplemental workbook. There are activities for each of the sections, and during the presentation, I will make a note of these activities and will encourage you to pause the presentation and spend some time applying your new knowledge to the situation or circumstance that you're familiar with. This will help with your learning. And in getting us started, please pause the presentation at this slide and go to the activity on page 2 of your workbook, building a case study to practice. Spend a few minutes describing your network and building a brief case study to focus on through the rest of this workshop. You will use this case study as an example throughout the workbook to apply and practice new knowledge. There are questions in the workbook to guide your thinking. In this first section of our workshop, we start with Know Your Collaborators. We'll be focusing on and talking about several important words and ideas: collaboration, network, and stakeholders. And we'll be exploring building blocks of engagement and begin to think strategically about collaboration. Reference sources throughout this workshop are included at the end of the presentation and at the end of your workbook. Research and our own experience describe why we look to collaboration as a good idea and worth the effort. With complex problems and complex decisions, diverse groups do a better job than homogeneous groups or individuals by bringing different mindsets, perspectives, expertise, and skills to bear. The benefits include increased creativity, fewer missteps, stronger relationships, and goals that are met or even exceeded. We're going to use a fairly simple and broad definition of collaboration for this workshop so that we will include different scenarios and circumstances of your work. Collaboration is the action of working with someone to produce or create something. And there are other terms that describe this shared effort of collaboration. One way to better understand the nuances of collaboration is to consider the complexity of the effort and also the level of required commitment to the work. Here are words that help us distinguish between the degrees of collaboration. Cooperation includes sharing of information and different things like space and services, or maybe sharing equipment or different resources. Coordination requires a bit more commitment and includes sharing things like administrative services or even staff or or joint programming. Partnerships require formal agreements and often include the significant intertwining of business processes, mergers or acquisitions, and formal partnerships. It may help your collaborative effort to use more precise language to describe your work. This can set expectations for the degree or the level of commitment you're asking your members and stakeholders to engage in with you. Another word that is used to describe collaborative environments is networks. There are folks that are actually called or do the work of network scientists. And what they use to describe a network sounds to me like what we call collaborations, collectives, consortiums, and partners. I often use this term network as a generic word for collaborations and partnerships. Here's what Visible Network Labs uses to give definition to the word network. A group of 3 or more organizations that are working toward a common purpose. 9 non-hierarchical organizations, but a structure is in place for making decisions, and there are multiple types of connections in place that serve to hold the partnerships together. It is people that represent organizations at the network table, and networks are used as a tool for change. This last idea is worth repeating. Networks are used as a tool for change. Let's keep this in mind as we continue to learn more about strategic collaboration as facilitative leaders. Other language for us to be aware of and have a shared understanding are words that describe the participants of a network or collaborative effort. Today, we'll be using the term stakeholder with the meaning of an individual, group, or organization who may be affected by, or perceive itself to be affected by a decision, activity, or outcome of the project. Other words that are often used to describe participants include partners and members. In this presentation, we'll be using these terms pretty much interchangeably to make sure and cover a broad understanding of stakeholders. When we talk about people who are engaged, we mean people who are committed to the network's goals and are willing to participate in activities that help achieve these goals. Let's take a bit closer look at this idea of engagement. It is so important for effective collaborative work. How do we really know when someone is engaged? I would say that I know it when I see it, literally. You will hear people speaking positively and advocating for the network, and you'll see ongoing and repeated participation in meetings and activities. You will notice folks speaking up in meetings, proposing ideas, volunteering to contribute, and following through on commitments. The building blocks for promoting or encouraging engagement include 4 factors to keep in mind. Participants want to feel that the group values their perceptions and insights, that there is a match between what the group thinks is important and what the participants think is important. Participants or stakeholders know why they are part of the group. and they have a clear understanding of the vision of the group. We're going to learn how to use a stakeholder analysis tool to focus on these foundational building blocks of engagement. Over the next few minutes, I'll walk through a tool that will help you analyze your stakeholders to get to know them better. This tool helps us be strategic in applying our collaborative effort, giving us insights and knowledge to understand who our collaborative stakeholders are and why they are showing up for your collaborative work. I have an example to walk you through, and then we can pause the presentation and give it a try with your own collaborative case study. There are actually many ways to do stakeholder analysis. There is not a single tool or method. The one I'm going to share with you is pretty straightforward, using a grid format for analysis. This is the tool that I like to use. The goal of stakeholder analysis is to make concrete and explicit connections between each stakeholder and the work of the project. The more specific you can be, the easier it is to consider what to do with the analysis. I encourage you to try and avoid using vague or implied meaning when mapping your stakeholders. If you analyze your stakeholders early, you're proactively using the engagement building blocks to understand who your stakeholders are and why they are involved in the project. This could influence the project's outcomes or how the operations are put together. If you are analyzing your stakeholders during a project, you probably are beginning to get some clues that there is less engagement than you would like. At this time, the analysis can be a problem-solving tool with engagement when engagement isn't quite where you'd like it to be. If you're analyzing your stakeholders after a project is over, like a project debrief, you would be thinking through what worked, what didn't work so well, and what can be learned for future initiatives. Stakeholder analysis includes mapping our key stakeholders into a 2x2 grid. The two criteria are how much the stakeholder influences the collaboration or collaborative project, and how much impact the collaboration has on the stakeholder. The task is to place or map each stakeholder onto the grid based on the criteria used in the horizontal and vertical axis of the grid. Starting in the upper right, this is the key partner quadrant, where the stakeholder has a lot of influence on the success of the collaboration, and the collaboration has a lot of impact on the stakeholder's success. Another quadrant in the lower right is the impacted partner quadrant. This is where the stakeholder recognizes that the collaboration could have a significant impact on their own work, or where the project and their own efforts are highly aligned, but they themselves may not have much influence on the success of the project itself. Another quadrant in the upper left is the influential partner. This is where the stakeholder has a lot of influence on the success of the project, but the project may not directly impact their own work. The fourth quadrant to consider in the lower left is the good neighbor quadrant. This quadrant describes the stakeholders that neither have much influence on the project, nor are they impacted directly by the project. Let's run through an example. This example is of a network, Center State Community Health Network, with a collaborative project goal of integrating behavioral health resources across the community. And the activity to help achieve this goal is implementing a training opportunity for professionals in mental health first aid with a focus on the seniors population. We have 4 key collaborators or stakeholders that we are mapping to better understand how much the project is impacting their work and how much they are influencing the project. This is a proactive approach for strategic collaboration, helping us gain insights on how we can support their engagement with the project, finding opportunities to be specific in our engagement efforts. Our stakeholders for this collaborative effort are Eve, the Chief of Police, Dan, a social worker of a behavioral health clinic, Lori, a superintendent at the Center School District, and Scott, CEO of the Tri-County Hospital District. This analysis effort is the hard work of knowing your stakeholders and understanding why they're participating. Let's place each of the key stakeholders of our example into our collaboration map. First, we consider what we know about each in relationship to our project and how we think they are benefiting from participating in the project. Dan, the behavioral health social worker, will be training the mental health first aid content and has years of experience. Also, he has been in the community a long time and is well respected. Dan has the ability to be quite influential for the success of the project, and also could be significantly impacted by the project success in regard to the well-being of his clients. I would place Dan in the key partner quadrant. Scott, our local hospital CEO, has a population health strategy in place at his hospital to reduce ER visits, but he does not have a social worker on staff, nor a community health worker program that is part of his hospital services. I would place Scott in the impacted partner quadrant because his ER visit outcomes could be impacted by the success of the project, but without staff that are able to provide mental health support, he does not have much influence on the project's success. Lori, the superintendent of schools, has been an outspoken supporter of mental health issues within the community and is a proponent of reducing the stigma of mental health. However, this project is focused on the seniors within the community. I would locate Lori in the influential partner quadrant because Lori has an opportunity as a leader within the community to influence success of the project, even though it will not directly impact the K-12 students. Eve, the chief of police, has a department of police officers that are responding to calls where people are in distress or even crisis. There is a history of the department being disinterested in learning about mental health issues or discussions with mental health providers. I would place Eve in the lower left quadrant, thinking of her as a good neighbor. Eve may consider the project a good or interesting idea, but doesn't yet see a fit with the goals of her agency. Once you've used the map to pinpoint the stakeholders, it's time to dig deeper into the engagement building blocks. Our goal is to be strategic with our collaborative work, but we need more insights into who our stakeholders are and why they would participate in our collaboration. Here are some questions to work through for each of your stakeholders. They are based on the engagement building blocks. My suggestion is to pull a few other people into a conversation so that you can get more than one perspective. And if you really want to go all in, you could even have the conversation with the stakeholders. This is sincere work with the end goal of ensuring that the relationship between the stakeholder and the broader community initiative is a mutually beneficial one. These questions are included within your workbook on page 6 within the activity, Knowing Who and Why Stakeholders Collaborate. Let's try this out together, and then you can use your workbook to practice for yourself. With our example, the Center State Community Health Network and implementing a mental health first aid training program with a focus on the senior population, I'm going to focus on Eve. Eve is in the good neighbor quadrant and of our stakeholder map, and I think that the project would benefit if Eve could be more engaged with the project. So we think through these questions. What's important to Eve? Well, my thought is that officer training and labor costs are important for Eve. What is she worrying about? I'm thinking that she's worrying about the time commitment for the training. How will the project benefit her? I would need to talk to Eve about this, but my guess is that there would be fewer arrests. What is the clear connection to the project? Perhaps what I could do is provide some information for Eve, highlighting lower labor costs and increased officer safety that I found in a comparison program. And what modification might be needed? Well, when I think about Eve, it might be that I could adjust the training schedule to minimize overtime for her officers. And how will I know when I'm making progress? I would look for increased attendance of Eve at our meetings. So my summary for you of this section is that a leader's role in engagement is to ensure the environment is set up to increase the odds that stakeholders will feel and do what you're hoping for. And to do this, sometimes an investment is needed in getting to know your stakeholders better. Now it's your turn to give the stakeholder analysis mapping a try. Please pause the presentation here and work through the activity, knowing who and why stakeholders collaborate, pages 4 through 6 in your workbook. Use the stakeholder analysis worksheet to consider several stakeholders, members, or partners within your own case study collaboration. Map or place the stakeholders, members, or partners onto the stakeholder analysis grid, and then think through the stakeholder engagement strategies. In this section of our workshop, we're exploring the idea of facilitative leadership as it relates to collaboration. In this section of our workshop, we'll be focusing on and talking about comparing definitions and ideas of collaboration, collective impact, and collective engagement. These words and phrases are used quite often interchangeably, so let's be sure to consider together what is meant by each of them. We will also be exploring facilitative leadership values. We will talk through values that influence the approaches and methods of a facilitative leader. And we will talk about how systems thinking skills are so important to the hard work of collaboration and leadership. These words, collaboration, collective impact, and collective engagement, describe some pretty similar ideas, approaches, and methods. I hear them used when talking about groups that are working together, trying to make a difference. So let's explore them a bit today. We have some shared understanding within our workshop. Collaboration, according to the Oxford Dictionary, described as an action, means working with someone to produce or create something. In the last section, we talked about the degrees of collaboration, cooperation, which includes sharing, coordination that requires a bit more commitment, and partnership that requires formal agreements and often significant intertwining of business processes. For our workshop, we can use all of these words to describe the action of working with someone to produce or create something. Collective impact is a type of collaboration. Although I found several definitions, this one, that collective impact includes a commitment from a diverse group of stakeholders on a common agenda and a specific social problem, makes sense to me. In general, collaborations that are seeking collective impact have the following in common. There's a neutral backbone organization with dedicated staff and structured processes that describe a common agenda. There's a shared agreement on what success looks like for the entire group. And there's continuous communication that is dedicated to empowering all stakeholders. Additionally, activities among participants continue to focus the group on the specific social issue. With the language of collective engagement, we're beginning to shift to thinking about an approach or a commitment. This phrase, for us in this workshop, means that as leaders, we are committed to having everyone participate, including setting goals, making decisions, sharing information, and learning with each other. This phrase is really another way of saying facilitative mindset. Facilitative leadership means approaching your leadership role with a collective engagement or facilitative mindset. This mindset is foundational to the way a leader thinks, and it influences choices and decisions. Facilitative leadership involves an empowering style that places the leader more in the role of a facilitator than a visionary. A facilitative-oriented leader believes in the power of the group's diverse perspectives. This is an effective approach when in a collaborative or collective impact environment. The Institute of Cultural Affairs, through its facilitative approach, Technology of Participation, describes leadership differences this way. Hierarchical leaders are a good fit for crisis situations, an environment that needs to be quickly decisive and does not have time for scenarios. This is when everyone, or most, agree that making a decision is more important than relationship building or perhaps it's a short-term agreement. Facilitative leaders are a good fit for when there are varying opinions, the situation is complex, the outcome is important and long-term. This is when relationships are key to long-term success and that there is a system-level change needed. According to Brian Stanfield, an early thought leader of the Institute of Cultural Affairs, one of our primary resources for this section of the workshop. He shares these foundational values of a facilitative leader. There's action and ownership value that positions the group to take action on decisions. Inclusive participation is a value that invites and sustains participation from everyone, understanding that each person's insight is a piece of the puzzle needed to create a whole picture. Individual and group creativity is a value that recognizes that each person and the group have both rational and intuitive capability and encourages dialogue between these two ways of thinking to spark and support creativity. There's a value of teamwork and collaboration that assumes that we get a task done in the most effective, efficient, and economical way. It creates a sense of collegiality among members of the group. Reflection and learning is a value that enables time for individuals and group reflection and sharing by celebrating learning and collective action. Other collaboration thought leaders, Senge, Hamilton, and Kanya, share with us that another foundation value of facilitative leadership is the capability of systems thinking. They share that systems thinking is a sixth value of facilitative leadership. This value includes seeing the larger system, thinking about our thinking. This helps us to see ourselves inside the problem and as part of the problem. And instead of trying to solve something, it's a shift toward co-creating the future. Now it's your turn. Please pause the presentation here and work through an activity to consider your own experiences and collaboration circumstances. How would you prioritize the 6 foundational values of facilitative leadership for yourself and in the environment that you're working within? Turn to page 9 in your workbook to complete this activity. So when you want to get somewhere, what is the most important thing to decide first? Exactly, where you want to go. This is especially true if you are attempting to get there with others. For this section of our workshop, we're considering the role and importance of having a shared vision that answers the question of why for the collaborative's work. This why provides a compelling picture of where the group wants to arrive together. Some call it a destination or future state. In this section of our workshop, we'll be focusing on and talking about the value to a collaborative effort in having a shared vision that gives the group something to aim for, like a beacon. We will explore factors that help us articulate in a compelling way what the shared vision is. It answers the question, why are we doing this? What is the reason or the rationale for the effort? As a facilitative leader, we seek for our collaboration's collective engagement. That is, engagement of the entire collaborative group, a diverse group of stakeholders that are seeking to make a change together. There's a lot of study and research in engagement. A key finding is that stakeholders, those that are part of a collaborative effort, need to understand what they are working toward and why they are part of the group. I'm starting this section on shared vision and collective engagement by bringing us back to the building blocks of stakeholder engagement that we explored earlier. Stakeholders are engaged when they have a clear understanding of the vision. It may be that your collaborative group is already quite familiar with the vision of their work. If this is the case, having a brief shared vision check-in conversation may be all that is needed to address the critical building block of engagement. The goal of this check-in conversation is to make sure that everyone does have a common understanding of the collaborative's vision. This slide provides an example of a design conversation to have with your stakeholders. However, if the vision is not clear to the stakeholders of the collaborative, then more work is needed, and the facilitative leader can help. In this section of our workshop, we'll draw on material from Peter Senge's book, The Fifth Discipline. Peter Senge's creative tension model tells us that having a compelling vision, a picture of our destination, pulls us towards the future. If people have a destination they want to reach, one that is attractive, that is compelling, then they will actively work today to make sure they reach that future. There are three qualities that make a vision compelling, that draws people forward. To be compelling, the vision is simple. Simple is memorable. Simple is quickly communicated. If people cannot even understand or remember the destination, they won't feel attracted to it. Positive. The destination should be described in positive terms. We will be this or we are that. It is the opposite of we won't be like that other organization. And emotional. The destination must be emotional, touching our hearts and feelings. The French author and poet of The Little Prince looked at adventure with a change agent's eye. He says, when you need to build a ship, don't begin by gathering wood or delegating tasks. Rather, increase the desire for the wide open sea. Here's an example of considering a compelling why. I'm heading to Paris and I'm looking for someone to join me. Not a bad destination, but there are a couple of different ways to think about it. Let's see, I could share information about the total population and the square miles of the city of Paris, or I could describe how long it will take to get there. Come and join me for my trip to Paris. It will take about 20 hours to get there. This is simple and informational, but it isn't particularly positive and definitely not emotional. Let's try again. Let's come at this from a different perspective. When I consider the question, why would I want to travel 20 hours to Paris? Well, it comes to my mind. It's seeing the Eiffel Tower and artists along the rivers, listening to music late into the night. These are images of Paris that catch my imagination in a positive and an emotional way. How about this as a vision that pulls you toward the destination? Come and join me in an escape to the sights and sounds of Paris. Now let's consider how to describe, or articulate a destination vision, a compelling why for your collaboratives. Start with describing the change that you're striving to achieve. Perhaps this is an event or an initiative. For example, asking our partners to use new technology or operations in a new process. After you identify what the change is, then consider which of your partners you're wanting to engage. Questions that will help you explore what is positive and emotional for your partner may be examples of what aspects are meaningful or exciting, what goals or burning issues are important to your partners, and where's the overlap or match between those two. Next, think about the ultimate result of your efforts. What is the impact if you are successful, and who will benefit? Then just go for it. Write a sentence or two that describes the destination of your project or event. I want to make a point that the destination vision is not written to include in a report. It is written to motivate your partners and your stakeholders as you engage them to adjust to a change. It is the image that catches the attention of your partners and pulls them toward it. It motivates them to engage with you. Using our Paris analogy, it takes hours in a cramped airline and waiting in lines to actually get to Paris. But if you keep the destination in mind, the journey has meaning and remains a motivator throughout any difficulty. People become engaged in a collaborative effort when they can see the peak, when they have a clear understanding of the vision, of the destination. That is, when they're able to make a decision that they want to get there. If your role as a facilitative leader, in that role, you can help your collaborative group identify its simple, positive, and emotional reason to engage in your group's work. For this activity, effective collaboration requires a shared collaborative vision. Please pause the presentation here. Let's practice writing a compelling vision for your collaborative change effort. Turn to page 11 in your workbook. We know that groups, rather than individuals, are often the best hope for solving complex problems. But sometimes People hold back ideas or aren't heard due to personal style or meeting circumstances or relationships within the group. To get the best results, a facilitative leader understands how groups make decisions together. We've worked with the definition of engagement to mean commitment to the collaborative goals with a willingness to participate in activities that help achieve these goals. Another way to say this is that we have engagement in a group to attract and hold the attention of or gain the support of people. The people in your group are likely a mix of roles, such as board members, partners, and staff. We're going to take a look below the surface of how a typical group comes to an agreement and makes decisions. See if this describes how you have experienced it. Starting from the left, a new topic is introduced. For example, there's a grant opportunity that we need to figure out if we're going to pursue. Over the course of time, for example, in a meeting, each person in the group equally offers an opinion or information. And before long, everyone sees a logical choice and they come together and agree on a decision. Wouldn't it be great if it really truly was like that? Okay, once in a while, if a topic is uncontroversial or there are no high stakes, it can happen that way. However, there is a more typical pattern that you may have experienced if people have diverse styles, strong opinions, and different backgrounds. How groups really make decisions in many circumstances looks more like this. A topic is introduced. Everyone begins to say what they think, and the discussion goes off track or in multiple directions. Or even more challenging, a group starts to discuss a topic, but there is no obvious solution. The group begins to feel stuck and can even start to show irritation with the process or with each other. When that happens, it is tempting for a leader to prematurely make a decision and end the discussion. The long-term effects of this, however, are a lack of trust and confusion about the process and potentially unwillingness to support the decision. So what's the alternative? Let's look more closely at a healthy group decision-making process. Complex problems that don't have obvious solutions benefit from considering varied perspectives. When a topic is raised with the group offering different opinions, it often leads to more rich discussion and deeper understanding of the topic. Healthy discussions start with the divergent phase. This does not need to be a point when the varied perspectives are weighed, and with the insight gained, an informed choice or decision is made. This is the convergent phase, or coming together from different directions. The divergent phase is the part of the discussion where many ideas are gathered for consideration. Various alternatives are suggested. People contribute as they think of ideas. Differing perspectives are encouraged, and insight is gained about what the problem or issue actually involves. The convergent phase is the time when a group of stakeholders evaluates alternatives presented, summarizes what has been learned, sorts the ideas, and comes to a conclusion. And here's the often difficult phase between the gathering ideas and coming to a conclusion. Excuse me. We'll refer to it as the groan zone. It's a time when discussion seems stalled. There's a lack of agreement or understanding, and no end is in sight. Perhaps you've been in a meeting like this, or you have led a meeting where you have noticed or felt like the meeting is jumping around and feels disjointed. There's some tension in the group or disagreement. There isn't a clear path or direction to take. Well, here's the good news. When working with a group through this zone, there is nothing to worry about because the groan zone is a normal phase of group decision making when the topic is complex and there are diverse ideas and opinions. So I encourage you to celebrate being in this zone. Think about this phase as the creative zone, where new ideas are being formed. People are learning from each other and new ideas are coming together. A tip and encouragement is to stick it out with the discomfort of the groan zone, and it can lead to new and innovative solutions and even breakthrough results. Here's a good metaphor to keep in mind. Group decision-making is somewhat like walking. You are in balance, and then to move forward, you must shift your weight and get out of balance, the groan zone, before you get in balance again. Being out of balance for a moment is necessary to move forward. This normal process of group decision-making moves a group toward commitment. In the activity in your workbook, Where is the Group Stuck? Please pause the presentation here. Let's practice identifying what stage your group may be stuck and consider possible facilitative solutions that will help your group move forward toward creativity and a decision. Turn to page 13 and 14 in your workbook. This is the last section of our workshop on strategic collaboration as a facilitative leader, providing you an opportunity to some good action planning work. In this section, you will have an opportunity to consider what you want to take away from the workshop and apply your own collaborations, helping to think through development of a collaboration improvement action plan. Within your workbook, on pages 14 and 15, there's an action planning template that includes 4 steps. Step 1 is to select a specific situation or partner you want to apply your learning from this workshop, a situation that warrants some time for improving a collaborative relationship or result. Step 2, describe the situation or circumstance and highlight any contributing factors that influenced your selection. And step 3, describe the objective or result of this collaborative action plan. In step 4, using your knowledge of the foundational building blocks of engagement, stakeholder analysis, the 6 foundational values of a facilitative leader, articulating a compelling why, and a normal decision-making process for complex environments that celebrates the groan zone as an opportunity for creativity, go ahead and identify 2 to 3 action steps that will move you towards your collaboration improvement objective. Thank you for your attention and engagement with this presentation and the accompanying workbook. If you have any questions or wish to talk with me in more detail about any aspect of strategic collaboration as a facilitative leader, please reach out to me. My contact information is on the last slide of this presentation, following the reference slides. I provided the reference slides for you so that you can dig deeper into any of these topics that you continue to be curious about and wish to learn more about. Again, thank you for your time and attention in this workshop, and please reach out to me if you have any questions. Take care.